And welcome back to Quarantine Season on Foul Players Radio. My name is Michael Spedden, and tonight's guest is a veteran of the Baltimore music scene. He's been recording and performing in bands for many, many years. He's got almost a photographic memory of the Baltimore rock scene. I brought him on the show tonight because, he's just got lots of great stories, played in lots of great bands over the years. Please welcome to the show, Greg Centers. Welcome, Greg. Good to talk to you, buddy.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. So, Greg, you've been kind of a non-stop thing for a long time in playing music and being, a good songwriter. You've played in lots of different bands and everything. I read a lot about the bands that you were in that book that came out about the Baltimore music scene a couple of years ago. I think you could have had the first half of the book to yourself pretty much, with some of the things that you were telling us about here. So, tell us about this, all these bands you've been in. You started off, when did you start?
That's when I started playing guitar. I was probably about 13.
Okay.
That's when I used to take guitar lessons at Yeager's Music Store on Eastern Avenue in Highlandtown.
Good old Yeager's.
Yep. My guitar teacher was Gus Harris.
Okay.
He was a prominent Baltimore musician, and that's when I began with guitar.
Okay. And from there, you got to high school and started, hooking up with people and.
Yes, I started. In those days, talking late '60s, early '70s, there were so many musicians, and of course, I met most of them in school. That's where I came across most of them. Another thing at the time that was very prominent, there was a newspaper. It was called the News American. And they used to have a section in their newspaper called Young World. Okay. And it was its own section in the newspaper. And they used to have band advertisements in there, looking for players or players looking for bands, and a lot of advertisements for where bands were playing. So that was another way of meeting musicians. You'd put an ad in there, in search of a bass player, need a bass player, or whatever. So that was another way that a lot of the musicians at that time used to connect with different bands and end up joining a band.
Oh, okay, yeah. I even I'm a couple years behind you, and I met a number of people, just doing it on like Maryland Musician used to have a lot.
Yes,
of ads
that
like
came along
rocks.
later.
Yeah.
And that kind of Maryland Musician kind of filled that void. The News American went out of business.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what the passage of time was, but when Maryland Musician came along, yes, they kind of filled that gap.
Mm-hmm. And that was such. I remember, I've had some writers from Rocks magazine on the show before too, and just kind of reminiscing about how really special that was back then. And I think, if you were, playing nowadays, and a lot of people have commented on this, just how different it really is. I mean, back in those days, there was no internet and no email to do your work for you, to send things out, to put ads up and everything. I mean, you actually had to go to the clubs and promote yourself. And you had to go out and talk to the people and hand out flyers and shake hands and buy beers and try to convince people that you were the next hot thing out there to come see. And, getting, just kind of talking, when I, was playing in the late 80s and early 90s, I took a good hiatus to kind of get my act together personally. And then when I came back to it, it's a completely different world, people just weren't accepting of that or anything. But it was like that for you too, I guess, how you had to go out and, pound the pavement to really get to know people and get people to your shows, huh?
Yeah, there was really no marketing venues like there is today where you can have followers on Facebook, Instagram, just the general internet. None of that obviously was available then. When you got booked to play a place, it was pretty much up to the band to tell everyone they knew that where they were playing. We also would frequently run ads in that Young World section of the News American. That was another way of getting the word out. When we would be playing a place, we would announce where we were playing next, as long as it wasn't a competitor. If we were playing one nightclub, the owners frowned on on us making an announcement saying we're going to be playing at some other club
Right.
next week. But if you were playing teen centers, high schools, colleges, they were fine with it. They
Right.
didn't.
Right.
It's a totally different situation there. And some places there was a place in on Eastern Avenue. It was or Dundalk Avenue. I'm sorry, it's Dundalk Avenue, called Unity Hall.
Yes.
And
yes.
they used to the guy that ran that, Lou Carpuzzi. He would make sure posters went out every week announcing who was playing,
Mm-hmm.
and he also would book bands at Steelworkers Hall.
Sure.
He was
Yeah.
involved in that too, yeah. So he was a big supporter of the bands, and they always had those big day glow picture posters.
Yes. Yes.
Would be put up, and of course, the band. He would give what the band wanted, some for themselves, and then they would put them up in their neighborhoods and take them to shops. Like if there's a record shop that you went to, then we would take a poster to them and say, "Hey, can you put this in your store?"
Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of businesses were receptive to that. Every now and then you'd get somebody that would say, "Nah," because then everybody wants to put stuff in here. So some of them were down on it, but most of them were pretty cool about it and were willing to take it. But back to your point, yeah, it was pretty much doing it yourself on word of mouth on the street, making some phone calls, and there was no way of reaching the large numbers of people easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can do it now very easily,
Mm-hmm.
and reach a large number of people very easily through social media.
Right, but you can also have a lot of people hitting the delete button too, so that's another factor that kind of pulls in here. But I agree with you too, and a point that you were making was that a lot of times when we would go out and promote, we would have to make sometimes a couple different sets of flyers.
Yes,
we could make one with our full calendar that we would stick up at a college or at Gordon Miller Music or at Bill's or something like that. And then we would also have to, and then, if we were playing at Maxwell's, we would put all the dates we had at Maxwell's on there. Nothing about the Rage on there because that would end up in the trash can. Same
right.
thing with the Rage, And then it ended up being almost kind of a, almost kind of a battle sometimes too, because you try to get there, and they also kind of had to limit the amount of flyers and where you could put them sometimes, or else the place would end up looking like CBGB's after a while, which was nothing but flyers.
Yeah.
About 10 years worth of flyers deep, I think, on those walls.
Yeah.
Thank God there was never a fire in that place like there was with Great White up in Rhode Island.
Oh yeah, right. They had one of their pyrotechnic devices caused a fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what would have burned quicker, 10 years worth of flyers and stickers on the wall, or that foam, I mean.
Yeah.
that was so. You got yourself playing and everything, and then you ended up you formed a band called Silver Queen.
Yes.
Okay, and a number of people I know were in that band. I think you mentioned Fran Bryant, who I know. He's a friend of mine that I've known from playing music for a number of years and everything. Good singer
Yes.
and everything. So tell us a little bit about that. I know you, were in that band a number of years, right?
Yeah, I started the band in, it would have been early '73.
Okay.
Early 1973. We had, gosh, I counted them up one time. We had 9 different bass players.
Okay.
Throughout the band. I was in the band for 4 years. After I left, the band continued on for about 1 more year, and then they totally disbanded.
Okay.
As far as I know, I think that's pretty much what happened at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the 4 years from the time I formed the band till I left, we had 9 bass players. Some of them literally only played one band job.
Huh.
And that was it. Something happened, something went wrong, and they were gone. Some of them never even got out of the basement. Some of them were actually in the band. We auditioned them. We asked them to join the band. They said yes. They would come to a number of rehearsals, and then something would happen, and there'd be a split.
Right.
So we had 9 bass players. We had three or 4 singers,
Mm-hmm.
2 drummers, 2 or 3 drummers.
Mm.
Pretty much the only consistent players in the band were myself and my cousin who played guitar.
Oh, okay. Was that Danny?
Yeah. Everyone else was, kind of in and out. Now, some of them were around longer than others. Some of them were around for a couple of years here and there.
Uh-huh.
But there, like any band, there was a lot of turnover.
Right. Yeah.
Now, your question about Fran. I met Fran in college. We were in a music class, in a basic, an introductory piano class.
Uh-huh.
That's where I met him. And he ended up joining Silver Queen after I left the band.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, 3 months after I left, then the singer at the time left. And then that's when Fran joined the band. So he and I, we knew each other, but we were never in Silver Queen at the same time.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then we reconnected a couple years after that, and we're in a band that we only played one time, and then we formed another band, and that was Tail Gunner.
Okay.
And that's when he and I reconnected. Yeah.
Okay. And did you these bands, Silver Queen and Tail Gunner, so far that you've mentioned, had you been doing any original material, or was it mostly covers? Were you doing like a band that would come into the bar and play the whole night, or would you do mostly originals, or what would you do?
Yeah, the Silver Queen was fully a cover band.
Okay.
Up until the very tail end, we did a lot of Alice Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
Kiss,
Yeah.
Aerosmith, and a variety of other stuff. We did like 5 Beatles songs,
Mm-hmm.
a couple Stones, a variety of stuff at that time. Near the end of my tenure with the band, my feeling was we had gone as far as we were going to go as a local band.
Right.
We had played most of the major nightclubs. We had played most of the colleges, the teen centers,
Mm-hmm.
the school dances, and we had been on the circuit at that point for about 4 years.
Right.
And I kind of felt that well, certainly the initial aspirations were to so-called make it, okay, get the break, okay.
Yeah.
But you have to have original material to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are somebody like Van Halen that just has a hit on an old hit like they did with You Really Got Me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. A band comes out and their first hit is a remake.
Yeah.
But generally, to really get a shot at it, you pretty much have to be able to prove yourselves as songwriters. And so I was starting to really actively push for that. I said, we have to do original material.
Uh-huh.
And really, nobody else was that hot on the idea.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I wrote a song and introduced it to the band, and we played it. Our singer at the time had written songs
Mm-hmm.
on his own. And then this was Rob, and he said that, well, he had one he wanted to play, one of his. So it's okay. So we did one song that I wrote. We did one song that he wrote. Other than that, it was still all cover stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess probably within a few months or so after we introduced the cover material, after we introduced the original material,
Mm-hmm.
I left the group. We had an offer to travel,
Right.
and a booking agent had heard about us from we played some of the nightclubs that he booked bands at, and they were these clubs in particular were in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he heard of us, and the club owners spoke well of us, and we always worked well with the owners. We always had a good relationship with the club owner there.
Right.
All of them. There were several there, and So anyhow, he called me up one night and he said he was interested in putting us on the road, and he wanted to put us up in New York State for a couple weeks, and he booked all over the U.S. and Canada. So I took the offer to the band, and I said, hey, this agent called me. We knew who he was because when we were playing shows with other bands, I would always try to pick people's brains and find out who's who can do something for you, where can you go. So I knew this guy's name. His name was John T-Tac.
Oh, sure, right.
Didn't know anything about him other than that he was a big booking agent. So when he called me, I was acquainted with the name, and I went to the band. I said, well, let me see if they want to do it. And so I went to the band one night at practice, and I said that he had called and made us this offer. But half the band didn't want to do it. They did not want to go out on the road. So I was thoroughly disgusted with it at that point.
Yeah.
We didn't get along well anyway on a personal level.
Okay.
There was a lot of internal conflict in the band to begin with.
Yeah.
So between that and the fact that the realization hit me that, well, the band isn't going to go any further than this. This is the end of the road for it.
Right.
We'll end up being 30 years old and playing teen centers.
Sure. Right.
And so that just worked on me. So between that and the fact that we didn't really get along well anyway, I said I was leaving, and and they were probably happy I did because, like I say, we didn't get along anyway. And and the other thing was, I thought there was no really willingness to do original material. I had asked my cousin one night. I said, "Have you written anything or worked on anything?" And he said, "No. And when I do, I'll let you know."
Okay.
And he was belligerent about it, and he didn't really see. I guess he didn't see the value in it, or didn't want to do it, or didn't. He wasn't a songwriter.
Yeah.
Which is another component of it. But anyway, there was a dismissive attitude about it, and it's understandable in hindsight now because really nobody else had the same ambition level that he and I had.
Right.
And even though he had a high ambition level, he, at that point, like I say, because of the contention in the band anyway, that wasn't the foremost thing in anyone's mind, except mine.
Sure.
To write original material. So anyway, that was how that came to an end for me. And yeah. But to answer your question, it was primarily a cover band that only did originals up at the very, very end.
Okay. And what places were you playing around town? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, we played a lot of teen centers.
Sure.
A lot. We primarily played on the east side of Baltimore. We were not a real well-known band in West Baltimore.
Okay.
We played a couple places over there, but that wasn't really our stronghold. And we were all from the east side of Baltimore anyway.
Yeah.
So that certainly was another reason for that being the stronghold, because almost everybody we knew was from that vicinity. So
okay.
Anyway, we played pretty much any of the CYOs, which stood for Catholic Youth Organization.
Oh yeah, did many of those myself. Yeah.
Yeah, they were the schools, the Catholic schools that had a CYO, or a teen center would be another term for it. They had bands on the weekends. So we played those. We played a lot of your high schools in the area.
Yeah.
We even started to branch out. We played in Hereford, Maryland.
Sure.
Which was, at that time, that was considered pretty far out because we all lived in the northeast end of Baltimore City, or close by.
Sure. Yeah.
When Keith was in the band, now he lived in Delaney Valley, but it's still, it wasn't. We weren't a band that was that had really spread too far beyond our area.
Okay.
But then we started to, and we played. Like I said, we started playing Hereford, and then we played York, PA.
Okay.
We used to play the fire halls, the volunteer fire halls up there.
Uh-huh.
We played York, and we played another one up there. The name will come to me, but anyway. So we kind of did that circuit. We did a lot of things up the I-83 circuit.
Okay, yeah, right.
Kind of went up there. New Freedom, that was the other name.
New Freedom, yeah, I know there. Yeah, I know
New Freedom, PA.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, we did those kinds of jobs. Nightclub wise, we played the Seagull. We played the Act 3.
Uh-huh.
There was an old nightclub on Bel Air Road called the Red Balloon. Now, this is really going back. This is like mid-'70s.
Okay, yeah.
It eventually burned down.
Okay.
But anyway, we played there. It was another, we had a stint there where we played five nights a week. We did that for a while.
Is that right? Now, were you able to make a living in this band? You were doing 5 nights a week. Was this a full-time job at the time?
Not really. No, we did. Even though we did 5 nights there, most of us, not all of us, I was still working a day job. Most of the people in the band worked day jobs. Again, not all of them, but most of us still worked a day job.
Right, right.
We made pretty decent money. As a point of comparison, the day job I was doing at the time, I just worked in a warehouse.
Oh, okay.
And I made more money just playing a Friday and Saturday night than I made all week at my job.
Wow.
So, for people in the band like myself that continued to work and play, it was an opportunity to really make a lot more money than we would have if we had only played music.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Huh.
And we didn't do a lot of out of town travel. We did play in West Virginia. We played in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But it was weekend stuff. So
yeah,
we could juggle that between our jobs and playing out.
Right. Yeah, that was that's interesting though. 5 nights a week there, and I mean, were these clubs doing well 5 nights a week? I mean, did you have nights where it was dead, or did you? Were you able to pretty much? Were they pretty much happening 5 nights a week?
No.
Okay.
There were slow nights.
Okay.
And in those days, the typical nightclub night was 9 to 2. So you played 5 sets.
Oh wow. Okay.
And the norm was you would play for a 40-minute set and then take a 20-minute break.
Sure.
And then come back on. So you finished up about 20 minutes before 2.
Okay.
And that gave them time to clear the people out
Get the
at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of times they used to set the clock a little ahead anyway to give themselves a cushion.
Yeah.
Because they had to have the people out of the place by us. There's some time limit on that. So, and of course they wanted to lock up and go home. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we used to do, it was a 5. If you were playing the club circuit then, it was typically a 5-set date.
Wow.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Oh, boy. I did a couple, when I was doing some cover bands years ago in the 80s, we were doing a couple places where we were doing 3 sets a night. And now I look at the way I play now, I'm like, man, have I gotten soft.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm like...
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do 5 sets now.
Jeez, it's like,
No.
Yeah, I just turned 51, and normally when Johnny and I do the Uncle Moldy thing, we do about an hour set, and the thing is too, it's like we're not playing straight songs the whole way through. We're cut ups, so it's half a comedy act, half a original music act, and half of it is bantering with the crowd and being silly anyway. But after an hour of that, I'm like, okay, it's 11. What time is it? 11. Time to get home.
We didn't do. We did these 5-night jobs. Occasionally, we weren't doing them steadily. I mean, month after month after month. It ran in spurts.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.